Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to Guided by Lilith. Today, we're going to be talking about life and liberty as it stands post election in the year of 2024. It was indeed a close call for those who will be taking the White House in America, but the winner has been decided in the early hours of the morning by way of electoral seats. It is official that Donald Trump is now the 47th President of the United States of America. As of the evening of November 6th, Trump took the lead with 295 electoral seats, whereas Kamala Harris only had 226. The one who becomes president needs 270 seats to win. It is important to discuss what it means for people who are women and people who are part of the LGBT community. Why this subject absolutely matters on this channel is because Lilith is a feminist deity who promotes authenticity of self, freedom from abuse, freedom in one's own life and well-being, and sexual liberation unless it harms another creature. This also matters for Lilithians, pagans, and occultists alike because of the fight against restriction for those who are not Christian, as well as religious oppression. Not to mention that we are all people who are affected by these things on a regular basis if you fall under at least one of these identity categories. Before we understand how to navigate life despite the current political climate under Trump's presidency, let's take a look at the realities of politics as a whole. Politics in general can be extremely polarizing. Human beings are emotional whether we like it or not, and whether or not we think that we're only using our head instead of our heart, or both. It results in two-party politics regardless of if there are any other options to choose from, such as independent parties or affiliated parties. In Canada, it's constantly a battle between Liberals and Conservatives, despite having the NDP, which is the New Democratic Party. And then there's Bloc Québécois, which is based on the French separatist movement. The Green Party, which is the party dedicated to environmentally sustainable practices. And the People's Party of Canada, which is, it leans towards the right wing, but not as far as the Conservatives. For centuries, people have had the tendency to go head to head, tete a tete, mano a mano with an opposition or adversary. Politicians know this, and that's why we have people such as Donald Trump who are so polarizing and will do whatever it takes to win votes, even if it means becoming unpalatable or being laughed at by other world leaders. He has a reputation of simply not caring about how his statements come off, and the idea that he, quote unquote, says it like it is, can be very refreshing for demographics that already thought along those lines of what those statements are, but didn't yet say them out loud. I remember just before Trump got elected the first time, in 2015, he made fun of a news reporter with a chronic illness on live television. That is an example of outrageous behavior he has shown in the public eye that will polarize people towards either total disgust or relief that someone is as bold as him. Most of us also remember the grab her by the you know what statement, and people were equally either disgusted or both in shock and relief that their political leader is or is not just who they were looking for. Third, he has a court case filed against him where a young woman came out against both Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. This was filed in September 2016 in the state of New York and was a huge recollection of everything that happened to her when she was 13 years old. Eventually, she couldn't bear to face them in the press conference, and I personally can understand that it can be horrible to face your abusers in such a public way. This affected her ability to seek final justice, but I am confident that she was able to be vocal about her experiences. I will link the court document below, as well as a news article surrounding the press conference itself. Going back to polarization, we should understand that political candidates will use tactics that play on people's emotions in order to gain votes. When the issues surrounding illegal immigrants were much more pronounced in the media, Trump then decided that he was going to build a massive wall on the American-Mexican border. He knew that people were growing concerned about who was coming into their country that can't be accounted for. And because the population grew, we saw more crimes in connection to the increased numbers of citizens. So, why not use that to make concerned people feel heard, even to the extremities of saying something that sounds outlandish in order to emotionally and even physically mobilize people? This is actually how sales works as well. And Trump treats his presidency like a business, despite what he does and says at face value. This is also regardless of his past crimes, and I think we need to take notes on the greater picture of politics. In politics, it is constantly an exchange and sacrifice between people's lives and a healthy economy. It is really choosing between two very difficult subjects, which is just more polarization. I have had conversations with people that have complained about lack of affordability because of the Democratic Party holding the White House. We need food and shelter to survive. But also, what is survivability if there are policies in place that affect your safety and well being, especially if you're in a marginalized group? It's the really difficult decision of choosing between two hardships. Meanwhile, political players at the top echelons of society are mainly focused on one thing: money. What many people in poverty believe is pure greed. People who are the wealthiest often believe that money is tied to innovation and innovation is tied to personal growth. There is a book entitled The Science of Getting Rich that was published first in 1910 and was written by Wallace D. Wattles. It reads, "A person's right to life means his right to have the free and unrestricted use of all the things which may be necessary to his fullest mental, spiritual, and physical unfolding. In other words, his right to be rich." As we're now in the current day where women now have independent financial means as well, please regard the his part to mean a singular there. When we look at it from a distance, we can see that their wealth and privilege goes hand in hand because they have the ability to purchase things that give them a better livelihood. They don't have to worry about things like food, shelter, and healthcare, and focus mainly on other things like tending to relationships with other people, building on one's self esteem, improving personal image, and achieving spiritual abundance. This can also be explained using Maslow's hierarchy of needs as a model of a psychological concept regarding our priorities. I will link a resource that goes more in depth with this model in this description box below. Now, obviously, the ambitions of the wealthy will eventually affect those with less privilege because of cause and effect. Those that can afford major products and services need a means of producing those products and services. So, money goes to workers, materials, equipment, and property behind achieving these tasks. Hence, why we have jobs. Furthermore, we are all in a very organized society with an economy that can go up or down like a heart rate monitor. Most, if not all of us, have money coming in and money going out. Otherwise, we will not be able to live because we use money to get things that we need to survive. This is at least if you're not living purely off of the wild and off the grid. The amount of money gained and spent varies greatly between person to person as well. No wonder why money is such a huge concern for most people. People who are political leaders are no exception. But they play their wallet like they play a hand of cards, because that is what they learned how to do. It's important to keep in mind that the way we participate in politics affects how our daily lives pan out. Who you vote for will determine if you have bread on the table tomorrow or if you have to give up your safety net. Politics is a huge and complex topic that affects everyone regardless of how boring or exciting it is to get involved in. The pendulum constantly swings between someone's rights to livelihood and the sum of money in the bank. In the Western world, every 4 to 8 years, the pendulum swings towards the opposite end, bolstering an economy but boosting human rights, and then back again towards removing human rights but boosting the economy. If you ask me for my personal opinion, I am still perplexed as to how we can't achieve both human rights and have a wonderful, balanced economy where everyone can have food and shelter. Why is there a risk of disruption of human rights when we're in favor of making more money as a country? When making the economy better is a good thing for building on our freedom oriented goals. After all, isn't that what our veterans have been fighting for? To keep our freedom? What about freedom for all, lest it harm another person or innocent creature? These are all questions I have yet to find answers for. To add on to what wealthy people do, the reality is that it doesn't really matter what policies are in place in each state because they can afford to go elsewhere to get what they need. There will be loopholes that they find to get away from the restrictions implemented by law and enactments. Same thing goes with the ability to keep their money. It may sound illegal to use these loopholes, but based on the wording of these laws that have them, it is perfectly legit. For example, if a political leader's wife wanted a progressive reproductive health procedure, all they would have to do really is travel to another state to get it done, or even another country if they wanted to, while still reaping the socio-political benefits of living primarily in a more traditional state. That is how they view it. With enough money in your bank, there are no borders that can successfully limit you from doing everything it is that you want to do. I think this is an important topic to use to lead into the how to parts of this video and what situations they would be appropriate for. Surrounding female reproductive health, Trump denies ever wanting to ban a certain procedure at the federal level. On October 1st, 2024, he wrote a tweet that states in all caps, "Everyone knows I would not support a federal abortion ban under any circumstances and would, in fact, veto it because it is up to the states to decide based on the will of their voters, the will of the people." Many do not actually believe him, and truth is that he could change his mind at any time and pursue an abortion ban on a federal level whenever he wants. That being said, post election activities at the state level have continued to do more of what they've already been doing, as current states where abortion is legal have expanded abortion rights, while states where it is banned have doubled down. Regarding the states that expanded their abortion rights, it can give hope for those in desperate need of the procedure, but not everyone is able to access the resources in order to prevent or terminate the pregnancy early on. There are three resources that may help avoid detriments from not being able to get an abortion in one's current state. First is the Lilith Fund, an organization dedicated to giving women in Texas financial assistance in getting reproductive health products and services outside of the state. I will link the website down below. What can also help is a list of all of the clinics across the United States that offer abortions with addresses included. This list can be found on needabortion.com. I do recommend that if you are sexually active and need a backup, such as if contraceptives fail, that you plan ahead and you put some money aside for your health in advance, including your reproductive health, in case you are in need of certain products or services. This includes in case you need to travel long distances to get to the clinics for specialized treatment. It's really important that you take this into consideration because you just don't know when you're going to need it. And we don't know how long it will be until reproductive rights improve. in more accessible areas. If you're able to afford it and realize immediately after being intimate that it was unprotected, you can buy the Plan B pill at the drugstore without a prescription. You should take it the same day or the day after you have intercourse with somebody so that you can immediately stop the conception from even happening. Thankfully, it does take a couple of days to actually occur, so you do have some time. It's also why you should take it as soon as possible. This also should be a lot more affordable than having to travel last minute to a clinic and pay for a more intrusive procedure. This is one of the choices you have to make if you want to be serious about your reproductive health. Note that if you are intimate with someone and it was unprotected, please also visit a clinic to get tested for any STDs or STIs because contraceptives only prevent pregnancy. The next topic we need to discuss is how the Republican Party plans on approaching the LGBT community and their voice. In Chapter 7, Section 6 of Donald Trump's platform document, it states Republicans will ensure children are taught fundamentals like reading, history, science, and math, not left wing propaganda. We will defund schools that engage in inappropriate political indoctrination of our children using the federal taxpayer dollars. While reading, history, science, and math are all very important subjects to learn in school, and we need to keep those subjects in school, it is also important to talk about gender and sexual identity when it is age appropriate. Eventually, kids will start learning more about themselves on their own and need the education to better understand what it is that they're feeling. For example, if a 12-year-old kid is taught properly the definition of what being gay is without imposing anything about who the reader is themselves, it can make young people more aware and well informed so that they can decide for themselves how to define their existing identity. What's a concern is what exactly Donald Trump means by left wing propaganda. The term woke is often used amongst Republicans to label anything that is even remotely progressive. We are advanced enough as a society to understand practical concepts surrounding gender and sexual identity without it being a threat to anyone. I think we can do a lot better to find common ground without making children feel alienated from an identity that they developed on their own without any push from parents, other relatives, or peers. It is way too easy to label anything non heterosexual or non cisgender as part of a radical leftist agenda. If anything, it pushes progress and acceptance of gay kids and adolescents backwards, which is actually a threat to children and teenagers because of risk of abandonment, abuse, or losing their lives through suicide or homicide. Thankfully, we have many resources that provide emotional support to children and adolescents who self identify as LGBT. Although curriculum may be taken from schools and even books about sexual health and identity might get banned, but the internet has so many different ways of safely finding out information that both allows them to still enjoy a positive childhood where they can focus on other things besides their identity, but also understand what it means to be gay, bisexual, or transgender without forcing it. The latter part is what I think a lot of people misunderstand about progressive curriculum because there is the assumption that it's trying to make everyone directly part of the LGBT community. What's actually happening is that age appropriate resources are being more and more readily available so that we aren't denying kids a chance to understand who they are if they do happen to be gay. Note that the LGBT community has profusely been trying to exclude child predators and pedophiles from even being considered part of the cause. However, high concern for wanting to protect children has often directed judgment at the LGBT community because, hey, it's someone to blame. The LGBT community becomes a scapegoat for those that can't seem to separate the definitions of gayness and child predation. Parents have a say in where the child goes to school. If age appropriate curriculum surrounding gender identity is pulled and the parents want their kids to be properly informed, educating their kids at home is also an option, regardless if it's in addition to or a full home based replacement of their kids' existing schooling in a physical establishment outside of the home. For kids and teens who identify as LGBT and need a counselor, the Trevor Project is a great option. The Trevor Project provides public education in a safe manner regarding topics surrounding gender identity and sexual orientation. Getting the proper knowledge from reputable places is so important for one's well being because it means you are informed about what you can do for yourself and your community. They have a website at www.thetrevorproject.org that I will also link down below. In Trump's same platform document, Chapter 9, Section 5, it reads, "We will keep men out of women's sports, ban taxpayer funding for sex change surgeries, and stop taxpayer funded schools from promoting gender transition. Reverse Biden's radical rewrite of Title IX education regulations, and restore protections for women and girls." Restoring protections for women and girls sounds fantastic. But in cases where it does not involve male physicality going up against female physicality, where is the protection for fully transitioned transgender women? It doesn't exist because there is a reversal in schools now that removes the idea that transitioning to another gender as an adult is any bit acceptable. Gender transition is something else that the Trevor Project talks about if people want to know more. This section also points that gender transition will no longer be funded by taxpayers. In this case, the bills for the procedure and other services needed, as well as hormonal therapy, will have to be footed by the individual looking to transition. I think now is a great opportunity to encourage the LGBTQ plus community to start being more financially forward and independent because that way they will never have to depend on government funding to make their lives easier through gender transition. This is something else that can be unexpectedly encouraged by the book, The Science of Getting Rich, because it reads, "People develop in mind, soul, and body by making use of things, and society is so organized that people must have money in order to become the possessor of things." What I would take from that is if you wanted to transition, you obviously need the money to do it. Such as what we've seen in Trump's platform document, you're not always going to have the means readily available to you. So now we need to get creative on how to make the money on our own to achieve what it is that we want. This even goes for women that are in search of reproductive health products and services. It costs money to obtain as well as it can cost money to go to where it's needed in order to get these products and services. Of course, it's easier said than done, but there's no time like the present to work on financial independence and freedom. It can also help you pay for the education that you want, such as if you wanted to homeschool your child and teach them a curriculum that is more progressive instead of regressive. Something else to understand is that in taking away funding from the LGBT community, the Republican government would be using that money elsewhere that better suits their goals. That's not to say that it is not a struggle to lose that funding, but realize that it's another way of prioritizing money in their own dealings and, yes, their agenda. As for the freedom to practice one's own religion, Donald Trump does show preference for Christianity in his political platform. It's nothing new, for Christian individuals and organizations to feel threatened by the presences of other religions and spiritualities. It becomes problematic when the Christians who do feel threatened use that in an attempt to silence the voice or destroy the means of another religion or spirituality. Little do they know that the same document that protects their religious rights can also be used to protect ours. A memorandum issued by the Attorney General entitled Federal Law Protections for Religious Liberty has multiple sections that clearly state that Americans shall be protected from religious discrimination, harassment, and abuse. It reads, in the United States, the free exercise of religion is not a mere policy preference to be traded against other policy preferences. It is a fundamental right. If you are face to face with the court system or law enforcement yourself, you may choose to provide answers based on how your religion is protected by the First Amendment, which is also what protects religious freedoms. For example, if you're a Lilithian practicing a spell with a few harmless ingredients and a concerned person crosses your path, you cannot be stopped nor restricted from practicing your religion or spirituality just because of the sole premise that a person from another religion doesn't like it. It obviously cannot impede local laws such as impeding traffic or public indecency, but if you follow existing constitutional rights surrounding freedom of religion, it can be extremely powerful in thwarting efforts in stopping your practice. If you are being harassed or even attacked for your religion or spirituality, please document it if you can and file charges if necessary. Nobody deserves to put up with that. I wouldn't harass or attack a Christian for minding their own religious business if it doesn't cause harm to another person or creature. So I expect the same respect towards myself and my community. Returning back to the pendulum, we are constantly seeing the back and forth swinging between prioritizing the collective, which is the economy in this case, and prioritizing the individual, which is personal rights and freedoms. This is another reality of politics that doesn't really end. It will never stay in the same place forever because the political parties holding in the head office for 48 years will be plenty enough to polarize the opposition into getting that office back into their own hands. The process repeats again and again and again. The moral of the story is to find the resources on your own and become more self reliant. Get more involved in your community and support one another as well. Reach out to people outside of your state and use the power of social media platforms to become stronger as a whole. American politics will vary based on each state. So, being more mobile and financially agile is something that can open up loopholes in the policies meant to separate you from your human rights. Being on a journey towards wealth is not easy, but getting started means you are fighting back against oppression. When you join together with others that want to fight with you, who share similar stories as you, it can be very powerful in tackling even the worst of times. Free resources can be found online and in your local libraries. Stay informed about your rights and pathways towards justice so that even with the existing laws, you know how to navigate them. Show America that your life is not to be trifled with and that you will not need to rely on the validation of those that try to bring you down. Arm yourself with the tools and knowledge to press forward and resist oppression. As a last note, because Lilithians or people who follow Lilith fall under the pagan or occultist categories, we can tap into greater spiritual power that can help us along our journey. Spiritual practitioners, witches, warlocks, spellcrafters, shamans, mediums, and root workers, you name it, all can contribute so much towards protecting people from harm and defeating tyranny. This election has both give an energy to and take an energy from all kinds of people, no matter which political party you stand for. You can recall your energy and use it in powerful spells and rituals for the sake of restoration, focus, and correction of wrongs. It may take some time to feel up to the challenge, but remember what you're capable of. It may not change the whole world, but you can look out for yourself and your loved ones for as long as you feel necessary. Get your crystals out, throw up in your spell books, grab the sage. It's all valid in doing something great for your spirit. Personally, I find that reading tarot and oracle cards gives me restorative energy because I surround myself with good souls and protection. Also, if you feel like hexing or cursing someone that wants to give you trouble, by all means, have at it. That can be healing too, oddly enough, to fling the turmoil right back at the people who send you destructive intentions. Have fun with your craft and find pleasure and happiness when you can, while the clouds look really gray. This is not the end, nor will the bad times last forever. And with that, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day or night, and we will reconnect another time. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe so the algorithm knows the kind of content you want to see. It does help me a lot as a creator, as I do put a lot of effort into my videos. Take care, stay safe, and farewell for now.